guitar is spinning round and round. Grab the ball, the shattered dreams of your heart, and at the feet of Jesus lay them down. Give them all, give them all, give them all to Jesus. Shattered dreams, wounded hearts, broken toys. Give them all, give them all, give them all to Jesus, and He will turn your sorrow into joy. He never said you'd only see sunshine. He never said there'd be no rain. He only promised a heart full of singing, at the very thing that once brought pain. Give them all, give them all, give them all to Jesus. Shattered dreams, wounded hearts, broken toys. Give them all, give them all, give them all to Jesus, and He will turn your sorrow into joy. And He will turn your sorrow into joy.
Carrie, and I had a very successful and happy mission trip to Kenya several weeks ago. We spent 3 weeks there. Kenya should be a map. I'm not sure you can see it too well. Kenya is a small country in eastern Africa. It sits on the equator, and we were part of the time in the northern hemisphere and part of the time in the southern hemisphere. Well, sitting on the equator gives them about 2 seasons, the rainy and the dry season. And they were going into what they call their winter season, and I think that's their rainy, their winter season, their rainy season. They, the country has access to the Indian Ocean, which gives them a lot of good trade. It's made up of about 40 tribes, and the one that you'd be most familiar with is the Swahili tribe. And that is, if you're speaking to another person, that's what they speak is Swahili. But the national language is English, and that's what's taught in the schools. And most all of them, of course, speak English. Sometimes you have to listen carefully to understand their English, but they do speak English. Where are we now? Okay. We're looking at, we landed in, oh, by the way, I want to say it's a volcanic nation also. They have several volcanoes, but they're all inactive right now. But they have had a lot of volcanic action there. First of all, we landed in Nairobi. I met the group. This was a group from the Idaho, Oregon conference. I had met the leader of this group, Louise, in another trip that we took together to the Texas border. And she had said to me, Carrie, we're going to go to Kenya this year. Would you like to go? So I said, sure. I had not been on a mission trip since COVID. So we got together. She started it all up, and we finally got 9 members to go. I was the only one from really outside of the rest of them were from Idaho and, well, Oregon and Washington. Many of us were retired, there was one young person in the trip, but I think there was only about 2, maybe 3 that were still working, but most of us were retired, which was a good thing too, I think. One of the first places we went to was Maawa, which was north of Nairobi, and we had, by the way, the accommodations were adequate, but, you know, and every one that we were in had mosquito nettings. Of course, we had to take a malaria shot, and all of us were taking malaria pills all the time, but we were there. In Maawa, the main thing that we were visiting there would be the Kenya Methodist Hospital. And the Methodist Hospital it says Methodist, but it was actually formed and started by the Methodist people in Britain. So, and you all know that Kenya was a British colony from, I think it was 1895 to 1962, maybe. 60, I'm not sure about that. No, 63. It became a free country. And then several years after that, then the Kenya Methodist Church took over the hospital. This is a hospital that's a big hospital, about 200 beds. And they have they have the medical students there and nurses and so forth. And this was a campus, a rather large campus. And on the campus was a guest home. And Kathy Mann was she's a volunteer from the States, and she was there, and she would meet every mission trip people, and then she helped us get to where we wanted to go, and we had our base there. Well, we were in Maawa for, I guess 5 days maybe. And I don't know where we are now. Let's back up a bit. You saw the flowers. The flowers there are beautiful, you all. They're most everything that we saw, we knew there wasn't any new flowers there. There's, hibiscus, and they were, look, I don't know what the purple is. Okay, one of the main things we did were to visit schools. We visited probably 4 schools, and when we would visit a school, the students would all come out and gather in front of us just like that. We were able to look inside the classrooms, and all of them did have a chalkboard. And that was one of the things that we took there. By the way, I took 2 suitcases full of school supplies that you all helped me collect to the mission to Kenya. So in all, we probably had 15 suitcases full of supplies. Now, we also took blankets and towels and sheets and balls, soccer balls for the children, as well as all of the reading glasses and school supplies that you all gave me. In one of the schools, I was in the classroom and I looked at one, I think it was the 6th grade room. And this was one of their books, which looked I was a 6th grade teacher. It looked a little advanced for me, but anyway, I was glad to see that they had textbooks. Okay, now what is that one? Let's see. Oh, now that was really a sad thing. We went into one classroom that didn't even have, a school that didn't have tables and chairs for the children, and those are the textbooks that they had right there. Can you see how ratty they were? That was one of the interesting things I think about. I had said something about getting textbooks. The government will not allow us to bring in textbooks, but they would allow us to build a building, one of the rooms. And this particular group from Idaho, Oregon conference had been there about 6 times before. So they had built rooms in some of the schools, which was real interesting too. Okay, this is a picture of 2 of the teachers there at one of our schools, just to show you how they dressed. Okay, that's a picture of another 2 teachers, and in this particular school, you will note that they had chairs and tables for their school. Let's see okay, we gave them different things. In this particular school, we had collected, if you remember, toothbrushes and toothpaste, and we gave every child a toothbrush and toothpaste, and the principal had to demonstrate how to use this because they had not used this ever before. Okay, the bathroom facilities at one of the schools was very awful. That's all I can say about it, was awful. So I'm pretty sure we left money there for them to build a new bathroom, and that is where it was to be, right there. And we've heard from this school since we've been back, and they have completed a brand new bathroom for the children. And that was wonderful, yes. And that was from our money, and also from our money that we left. They had, in the school where there were no chairs or tables, they had built the chairs and the tables, and they were in the classroom ready for the season to start. Let's see, what are they doing there? That's the toothbrushes. Okay, that would show where we're giving out toothbrushes. One thing that they loved, and we took that to every school, was blowing bubbles. They loved blowing bubbles, and we had several. We always blew the bubbles for them, and they were trying to catch them and so forth. Okay. Now, this is Jan, one of our members, giving a soccer ball to one of the students. Of course, they love soccer ball. The other thing that we took was jump ropes. They loved the jump ropes, too. One of the interesting things that they did in several of the schools was to dance for us. And this is a picture of the students dancing. They love to dance. In one school, and I don't think I have a slide of that. They asked us to come up and join them in the dance, which we did and had lots of fun, and they had fun showing us how to dance. Okay. Another thing that we did, one of our projects was to build a house. And so the house was it was a small 2-room house. When we got there, the foundation was laid, and the siding, work for putting the siding on. So what we did was to take the lumber and put siding all around it, and we put the roof on it, and we painted there. I went out a couple of times to help work at that site. But the one thing that I enjoyed doing most was go back to the kitchen garden. Go back up to the kitchen garden, right there. That's interesting, you all. This was a little house, a little two-room house, like they just went out in the woods and started it right there. So there was no room for a garden. But this is the garden. It's called a kitchen garden. They took a sack, which was a big round sack, probably a foot across this way, and punched hole, a toe sack, what we call it, and punched holes in it all the way around. So we stood and held the sack, and James, the person that went out that was working with us on that, took half and half manure and half soil, mixed it all up, and then he put it inside and filled the sack up completely, and we pressed it down. And then we took, he watered it on the sides a little bit, and then we took kale and spinach little pieces, and we poked in each one of the holes. And this works. And the very top, they were going to put tomato plants. Well, this was their kitchen garden. We did a couple of those while we were there, but this is the most interesting place, I think, where this, and they said it really worked. All you had to do was keep it watered. I thought about that sometimes here when we don't want to fool much with a garden. That would be a wonderful place to start with a garden. Simple way to do it. Okay, I think that's building the house. Okay, we had a dedication, and the dedication, there was a lots of dancing. The whole group danced all the way down to the house. That's what that is. And then that's the house. It was blue. That was interesting. They love blue. The doors and all were blue. And that is, not only did we build the house, we furnished mattresses and pillows and sheets and so forth for the rooms. It was a mother and her 5 children that were going to live there. Now, the 2 rooms, there was not a kitchen. All of the food preparation was done outside the house. So they lived in the 2 rooms with the bedding. Let's see what that is now. Okay, that's what that is, a dedication. We had a dedication of the house. This is Louise to the right here. And she was telling the group, about us and what we had done, and then we had someone to receive the sheets of dedication paper that we had to give to the people to show that we had built the house for them. Okay, this is another school room. Now this, and I wanted to show this because it was not typical, but some of them did have everything like they should have had in the chalkboard and the tables and the chairs and the school books. That's another picture of a school group where we were. At one of them, we are passing out, I think, suckers and New Testament. Someone gave us a lot of New Testaments, and we gave these to the children. I think that's where a lot of the schools, they came and they couldn't go home for lunch, so they had outdoor places where mothers prepared lunch for them, and I think that's what that is. That's another one with the children. Oh, okay, let me hold that a minute. I think we'll get on to that one. This one, however, is from, we're still in Mojave, from the base in the Methodist grounds where we had our base. We went there every morning. We went out with Daniel. Daniel met us at the plane and was with us all the time. Someone asked me, well, weren't you afraid several times? And I said, no, we always had somebody with us, and Daniel was with us all the time. And we had 2 bus drivers that were natives too, so we were never in a place where we felt that it was scary. Daniel was an interesting young man. He worked in the tourist industry, but he also had established an orphanage. He had about 50 or 62 students in his orphanage, and he had built it well. We worked in the classrooms, and what that is right there is, we spent almost one day with his students. We had a craft for them, and we had a reading of a book to them, and then they went outside and we jumped rope and played ball with them for a long time. They were just real interesting students, all the way from, he had 3 babies, and then they went all up to look like junior high students. And this was the one school where there was a library. Daniel had established a library, and it was open to the community, so the community could come in. In one of the schools, I think we'll get to that. Let's go on to the next one. Okay. One of the things, another thing that we did at the hospital, we went with the medical students out to a medical camp. And this, you know, like we have here when the doctors get together and go out to a certain place and give free service. Well, that's what this was. They invited us to go with the medical students out to a church in a community. And the adults came, and I think that's registration. Now stop just a minute on that one. We did, I think, blood pressure, and we took the finger for blood, and we also talked to them about what their aches and pains and so forth. So, but the one thing that I wanted to help with was the glasses. You all had given lots of reading glasses, and we just had lots and lots of reading glasses, all the way from a 1 to 150 to 175, all the way up to 5. So, and there were a lot of them in the group that needed eye glasses. So this is where I worked. They went to one of the medical students that helped to determine which size they probably would need. So then they came to me, and he had suggested a 1.5 or a 2.5, or like, so I pulled out the glass and put it on the person, and then asked them if they could see, and then what the main thing was, we gave them a book, and if they could read the book, then we felt like we had the right glasses on the person. Sometimes it was not the right size glass, so we worked with them until they did. It was a blessing to me to see them get up and walk away with a happy face, where they could actually see and read. And they also, you know, many of them would like to read the Bible, so that was an interesting thing too. They really wanted to be able to read. We might have, okay, now, let me mention, before we stay right there for a while, because we've moved on, but I want to go back to the hospital a minute. Every morning while we were there, we had chapel in one of the churches there. And Bishop Samuel was the person that they would bring in a minister from one of his churches. Now, they were called bishops, but actually they were the same as our district superintendents. They were not like our bishops. But anyway, Bishop Samuel one morning asked if anybody would like to visit with him in the hospital. Well, I did, so I raised my hand, and I went with Bishop Samuel, and we wore masks. But we went to every department. We went to the men's and the women's and the babies and the expectant mothers and the children's. And he went to every bed and introduced himself and then asked the name and what was wrong with them if they could tell. Many of them had gastric things wrong. There were several cancer patients there. And then he says, now Carrie, I want you to pray for this person. And then I will end by praying for them too. Well, I hadn't anticipated that, but it didn't bother me. He would tell me the name and what was wrong, and then I would make my prayer around this. And then he would end with that. Well, we went to every bed in that hospital. It was really a blessing to me. And one of the thing that blessed me the most was, before we left, he said, somebody came up and said, there's a lady in the women's ward that would like to speak to you all again. So we went back to this person, and she took our hands. We didn't normally, take hand warming or shake hands. But she took my hands like this, and she said something to us about blessing us. And then when she lifted her hand, she had left me a crumpled shilling note. And of course, they have so little. But she left that for me, and I thought, gee, that she's blessing me. I gave it to Bishop Samuel to use in his program. But that was really one of many blessings that we received during that time. Another thing that we did at the hospital was there were some 90 students that were going to graduate from the public health part there in the hospital. So we had taken little sacks about like this, and we had when we got there one morning at the guest house, we filled them with caps and pencils and candy and bracelets and tablets and so forth, and gave them as gifts to each of these students that were graduating, and they were real pleased with that too. I think now that we'll move on. That is, we'll go back to, it's let me be sure I get that right, bio-intensive. It was a house, I don't know where you can read that, but it's let's see. It was called the bio-intensive agricultural school. It was a school that was there to help the farmers. It was a very interesting place. I think it was government run. Stephen was the person that ran this, and he had fields of corn. The corn was everywhere. You could, as you drove along, and if there was a certain space that was open enough, there was corn in it. And you had corn on the cob for every meal, and you had rice for every meal, and then you had some kind of a chili-like substance that would had some kind of meat in it that you could put on your rice or whatever that was extra there too. But anyway, Stephen had plots of all kinds of vegetables, and then he had a dairy cow, and he had a sow with several piglets, and he had the male hog, and he had goats, and he had rabbits, and he had chickens. And what